Journal entry on December 12, 2019. Entry number 001. 4. The following is a journal entry found from Dr. Charles Dubrois. Its signature frequency was measured to have a QR8 impact on the timeline that soon followed. Additionally, the record keeper notes that a stabilizing branch of the timelines that followed was possible due to this key injunction point.
What is number? Truly, what is it, truly? Has our approach to number been almost entirely wrong? Do we take it for granted as a tool that lies in front of us on a regular basis? Has its very existence between misunderstood and misrepresented? It is imposed onto children at a young age, in no way like that of the number which is used by many of mathematicians, engineers, or anyone really who has a close relationship with it. We impose it upon their minds, often creating resentment for it, and little understanding of its true capabilities, and perhaps more important, wonder. I hated number until I saw how it interacted with and could create form, formed from the formless, interweaved as the very measure of space and time. We interact with the clock on a regular basis, a simple, circular measure of time. But do we really understand it? The clock, or time for that matter. What is one? I find my mind going back to such a simple question and finding solace in the simplicity of the quandary, of the contemplation.
Charles spent the entire night engrossed in his newfound understanding. He sketched series of numbers, drew intricate circles and spheres, and penned down equations to elucidate their interrelationships. By the time morning light started to fill the lab, it looked like a storm of thought had swept through the room, scattering papers filled with numbers and diagrams everywhere. The tabby cat lay curled up on a sofa, blissfully unaware of the intellectual upheaval surrounding it. Charles himself had finally succumbed to exhaustion and was fast asleep on the couch, the cat comfortably nestled on his chest. Just then the lab door opened. Dr. Susan Thompson stepped inside and gasped at the spectacle that greeted her. "Charles, what have you done to our lab?" Hearing Susan's voice, Charles began to stir, a bit groggy and disoriented. "Susan," he mumbled, his voice emerging from the recesses of sleep. "You won't believe what I've found. I think I've had a major breakthrough. I've begun to deconstruct time, space, and numbers. I believe I've identified the fundamental flaws in Einstein's field equations as well as in our quantum mechanical equations." Susan, familiar with Charles's late-night epiphanies, set her bag down and started the coffee maker. She knew she'd need more than a little caffeine to process this. "What are you talking about, Charles?" Charles stood up, energized by his own thoughts. "Susan, the reason we've been unable to reconcile Einstein's theories with the quantum world is that we're caught in a maze of our own making. Our models are built upon a fundamental misconception of reality, and even a misconception of numbers." Susan sat down, intrigued yet skeptical, as Charles approached a fresh whiteboard. "Look, everything we do in science aims to build a model to navigate reality. We abstract reality into numbers, geometry, and relationships. The aim is for this model to approximate the behaviour of reality, correct?" "Yes, go on," Susan prompted, her curiosity piqued. Charles drew a square on the whiteboard. "When we create these models, we choose a fundamental base set, Euclidean space, polar coordinates, and so on. These choices give rise to a set of possibilities, almost like a mini multiverse of outcomes cascading through time. If we pick the right base numbers and principles, our equations are elegant and useful. Pick the wrong ones, and it's a mess that needs constant patching. So, what if the real breakthrough doesn't lie in a new model or equation, but in a new understanding of numbers themselves?" Susan's eyes widened. Charles's fervour was contagious. "Susan, think about it. There are algorithms that can solve problems in 2 lines of code instead of 500. What if this principle applies to all of science, mathematics, and even the universe? What if we could change our fundamental understanding of numbers in a way that perfectly models not just one phenomenon, but the entire universe? What if the true nature of space and time itself could be understood through a cascade of emergent behaviours and models?" For the first time in a long time, Susan felt a rush of excitement that she had almost forgotten science could bring. Perhaps Charles had finally cracked it, or perhaps he was onto a path that would either redefine their understanding of the universe or lead to an intellectual dead end. Either way, she was more than ready to find out. Days turned into weeks as Charles and his team delved deeper into their groundbreaking research. Inspired by the tantalizing promise of finding a new number system that could revolutionize their understanding of space-time, they worked tirelessly. Even the tabby cat had settled comfortably into the lab, lording over an array of toys, a lavish cat tree, and a generous stockpile of tuna brought in by the interns. At times, Charles mused that perhaps the cat was the true overseer of their efforts. Sitting on the lab sofa alongside Susan, Charles reflected on their recent undertakings. Over the past week, they had dissected the roots of traditional number systems, breaking down their initial theorems only to reassemble them. Guiding their quest were two core principles: vibration and spheres, concepts that appeared to underpin not just space-time, but the very fabric of nature. Both in form and function, across scales and disciplines, these ideas seemed ubiquitous. Could it be, Charles wondered, that the essence of space-time was an intricate interplay of vibrating spheres? Their ambitious agenda had naturally sown some confusion among the younger members of the team. The task at hand was to dismantle and rebuild the familiar framework of numbers and operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, in hope of aligning them more closely with the observed behaviours of the universe. One intern, a young man with a keen intellect but a somewhat condescending demeanour, questioned the premise. "Charles, you're essentially claiming that numbers have an intrinsic relationship with the rest of the universe, that they aren't just abstract constructs. Don't you think the scientific community would have caught on by now, if that were the case?" Charles looked at the intern thoughtfully. Science is ever evolving. What holds true for one century may be replaced or refined in the next. Our understanding of mathematics has continuously evolved to accommodate new discoveries. As he spoke, a new realization dawned upon him. What if the breakthroughs we seek have already been made but overlooked? What if they exist but lack the context for proper application? Suddenly animated, Charles addressed the room. "Team, we've come a long way in developing our foundational ideas. But it's time to expand our horizons. Let's look to the past, revisit the works of early mathematicians and their theories on numbers. Who knows, the answers we seek may already exist, waiting for us to recognise their significance." Emboldened by Charles's enthusiasm, the team dispersed to their respective workstations, assignments in hand, and minds abuzz with the promise of uncharted intellectual terrain. As Charles surveyed the room, his eyes met those of the tabby cat. Sitting regally amidst a sprawl of papers covered in scribbled numbers and equations, it seemed to offer its silent approval. The cat's paws stretched out in front, once again reminiscent of the Sphinx. Intrigued, Charles pondered whether ancient Egyptian wisdom might also hold overlooked insights into number systems. As the weeks progressed, Charles found his thoughts meandering toward the enigmatic tabby that had inexplicably become a fixture in his lab. The creature's presence led him to embark on an intellectual journey through the annals of history, devouring texts that chronicled mankind's fascination with cats. What once seemed a distraction now felt akin to a burgeoning obsession. Finally, December 21st arrived, the date of the annual Christmas party, hosted by the Society of Scientific Exploration. A who's who of the intellectual elite, the evening brimmed with lively conversation, laughter, and an exchange of groundbreaking discoveries. Yet, for all its conviviality, Charles's mind was a storm of conflicting emotions, a labyrinth of vexing equations and theories that sought to untangle the universe's most perplexing mysteries. Sleepless nights filled with visions of multi-dimensional geometries and distortions in time had blurred the boundaries of his reality. The laughter and chatter of the party offered but a fleeting respite, pulling him back into the moment. Holding a glass, Charles observed how the light refracted, scattering in intricate patterns across the bar. His mind raced. Had he been in the lab just moments before? Was he not presenting his theories on time travel to the board just now, or interviewing interns for the project? He was a child again. Marbles clashed and scattered in random directions, yet they also followed lines, creating ripples, harmonies. Everything was a dance of waves, he thought. What, then, is not a wave? Dr. Dubrois? A voice shattered his reverie, pulling him back to the room, or at least a semblance of it. You are Dr. Dubrois, aren't you? Looking up, Charles saw a man impeccably dressed in a three-piece suit adorned with unusual embroidery that intrigued him. Ah, yes, I am Dr. Dubrois, he replied, his thoughts still awash with oscillating waveforms. Excellent. My name is Sir Sylvester Rhymestone, and I've been a keen admirer of your work, the man effused, undeterred by Charles's distracted demeanour. I've read all your papers on quanta and time travel. My interests lie in a different kind of machinery, but I've always found your work fascinating. Charles's ears perked up, despite his overwhelming preoccupation with his research. I see. Go on, he prodded, intrigued yet cautious. Rhymestone leaned in, lowering his voice to a whisper. We've recently discovered a new pyramid in Egypt, one that's been hidden under a mound of rocks for millennia. The chambers contain inscriptions, drawings, and geometric forms that point to a numerical system hitherto unknown. Charles was momentarily dumbfounded, the significance of the moment not lost on him, yet he feigned ignorance. What does an ancient pyramid have to do with my work, Mr. Rhymestone? Well, Dr. Dubrois, I hear you're on the cusp of revolutionary ideas about numbers and the universe. We believe your expertise could help decode these ancient systems, Rhymestone said, punctuating his statement with a knowing smile. Despite his curiosity, Charles remained guarded. That does sound intriguing, but I am fully engrossed in my current research project. Rhymestone seized the moment. Ah, but aren't you also facing a hiccup in your funding, even experiencing some skepticism from your board? An uncomfortable silence enveloped them, drowning out the cacophony of the party. How could this stranger know so much? Sensing Charles's hesitance, Rhymestone played his trump card. If you join our expedition and help us unravel these secrets, I'll grant you exclusive rights to any knowledge you glean. Moreover, I'll buy out your board and fund your research in its entirety. Staring into the depths of his glass, Charles weighed his options. Before him lay a crossroads, a decision that could alter the course of his research, and perhaps the understanding of the universe itself. Was it fate, coincidence, or a calculated move by this mysterious man? Regardless, the offer was too promising to dismiss. As he looked up to meet Rhymestone's anticipatory gaze, Charles felt that he stood on the precipice of a life-altering journey. For weeks, Dr. Charles Dubrois had grappled with a series of perplexing dreams that left him emotionally wrought, yet invigorated in a new way. Night after night, he wandered through a boundless desert, an eternal expanse of sand. Accompanying him was a white cat, its blue eyes gleaming like radiant sapphires. Although silent, the feline served as a guide, steering him through the desolate landscape. In one particular dream, they discovered an ancient temple partially submerged in the sand. The walls were adorned with hieroglyphs and arcane symbols that portrayed cats as keepers of wisdom. Led by the luminescent feline, Charles discovered archaic scrolls proclaiming the uncanny ability of a cat's purr to defy the laws of time and space. On another occasion, they stood at the edge of a cosmic chasm, a swirling vortex where stars and galaxies pirouetted to the symphony of an ethereal purr. As they gazed into the abyss, it seemed as though the cat encouraged him to decode the cosmic puzzle before them. In yet another vivid dream, they navigated a metaphysical forest populated with towering trees of enlightenment and wisdom. The leaves whispered revelations that struck a chord deep within his soul, espousing the intrinsic link between feline existence and the intricate web of the cosmos. With every dream, Charles felt the veils of ambiguity lifting, replaced by a lucid sense of purpose. It became increasingly evident that his groundbreaking research was intertwined with these mystical visions. He devoured ancient manuscripts and delved into esoteric theories, yearning for answers. It was at this juncture that Charles understood the necessity of joining the expedition Sir Sylvester Rhymstone had presented to him. With his research at an impasse and funding dwindling, the expedition seemed like the last glimmer of hope. Resolved, he picked up the phone at 6:07 a.m. on December 28th and dialed Sir Rhymstone's number. A well-spoken assistant with a British accent answered. Sir Rhymstone's personal line. This is Teresa speaking. Hello, Teresa. This is Dr. Charles Dubois. I wish to speak with Sir Rhymstone. Ah, Dr. Dubois. We've been awaiting your call. Fashionably late, but there's still time to join the expedition, Teresa remarked. Taken aback, yet intrigued, Charles responded, Indeed, that's precisely why I'm calling. Please inform Sir Rhymstone that I have decided to accept his offer and participate in the expedition. Excellent, Dr. Dubois. We will dispatch an information package detailing the expedition's itinerary and relevant background research. Subsequently, a car will arrive to transport you to the airport. Will that be suitable? Yes, that will be quite suitable, Charles affirmed. Very good, Teresa replied, in a tone that blended cordiality with precision before hanging up. As he set down the phone, Charles felt the convergence of fate, dreams, and reality. To the collective bewilderment of his research team, Dr. Charles Dubois exited the lab with uncharacteristic abruptness. Amidst the turbulence that had engulfed their research in recent months, his sudden departure raised no small amount of concern among his interns and even Susan, his seasoned research assistant. His parting words were cryptic yet hopeful. I've located our next avenue of inquiry and a potential source of funding. I apologise for not elaborating further. Trust in me, enjoy a well-deserved respite, and ponder the sphere equations at your leisure. The anticipated package arrived at Charles's apartment the following afternoon. It contained an envelope and a compact box brimming with research files. With little time for thorough examination, he dispersed the documents throughout his living space, pinned to boards, affixed to walls, a technique he had once learned. He believed that passive exposure to information enabled the subconscious mind to absorb and process complex ideas more efficiently. As he perused the documents, he found himself oscillating between awe and existential doubt. Spread across his apartment were temple blueprints, aerial photographs, infrared scans, and comprehensive analyses, theorizing the temple's significance. The temple itself was an enigma, lacking a name and, despite scans suggesting otherwise, seemingly without an accessible entrance. Carved on its exterior were cryptic hieroglyphs that read, He is the light, he will guide us here, he will guide us in the beyond. Where there is darkness, his light will find us. Where there is silence, the great purr may be heard. Additional files contained intricate diagrams and mathematical equations suggesting a cosmic repository of knowledge and numerical systems. A particular untranslated term caught Charles's attention. Its context implied a meaning along the lines of all-encompassing, all-in-one. As Charles pondered this enigmatic word, he experienced a momentary epiphany. He envisioned a compass, its needle spinning erratically. And as it spun, the compass revealed a 1 within which resided an infinitude of numbers. His mind swirled in contemplative reverie until it was abruptly shattered by a knock at the door. Charles moved to answer the door. He couldn't shake the feeling that he stood at the threshold of a revelation. Despite the travel, he must ensure that he nourished this train of thought. As Dr. Charles Dubois opened his apartment door, he was met by Teresa's urgent gaze. Without a word, she swiftly ushered him into a waiting car. As they traversed the city streets, she painted a vivid picture of their forthcoming odyssey, a series of flights, a rugged jeep ride into the unforgiving desert, culminating in a camel's slow march into its heart. In the quietude of the plane's cabin, Charles delved into complex equations, arranging numbers in geometrical patterns around triangles, circles, spirals, as if choreographing a celestial dance. As the cadence of numbers lulled him into slumber, he envisioned spheres and sequences waltzing across his mind's vast stage. Awakening, The world outside was a blur of sand and sun, and the jeep's vibrations coursed through him. Had he skipped the ordeals of flight transfers and delays, or were those mere illusions? Beside him sat Teresa, now garbed in attire befitting an archaeologist ready to wrest secrets from the desert. She broke the silence. "Doctor, we must make haste. Our team awaits at the excavation site, confounded by the pyramid's entrance, or its possible lack thereof. We're pondering the inscriptions. They suggest a hidden passage, though it seems to be sealed." As the jeep traversed dunes, the desert night unfurled a tapestry of stars above them. For an ephemeral moment, Charles glimpsed patterns and constellations weaving through the vast cosmic expanse. By dawn, the encampment loomed ahead. A robust man, whose very posture exuded authority, approached them. "Ah, the renowned Dr. Dubrois," he said, extending his hand. "A pleasure to finally make your acquaintance." Introducing himself as Major Alexander Sterling, he conveyed his military past and current role as the expedition's operational lead. Inside a grand tent, a sprawl of papers covered the main table. Major Sterling pointed at them. "Doctor, these symbols around the edifice hint at a way in." Charles, ever the skeptic, retorted, "What if there's no entrance? What if it's a sealed tomb?" Sterling unveiled an inscription, reading, "He of the first will pause, and thus will they be granted gateway." Hours bled into night as Charles pored over the inscriptions, eventually succumbing to sleep's embrace. That night, a lucid dream swept him away. He found himself beneath the heavens, observing the pyramidal tip channeling a beam to a particular star. As he approached the pyramid's facade, he read the inscription and paused, pressing his hand against its cool stone surface. Suddenly, Charles was roused from his tent, guided only by starlight, to the very entrance he'd seen in his dream. The pause, a play on words, he mused, laying both hands on the inscribed stone. An ancient hum emanated from within, and the entrance slowly revealed itself. But if it was a play on words in ancient Egyptian, how could they have known it would be transcribed to English? The thought was fleeting, and was soon enveloped by the presence of the pyramid's hallway. The corridor was an abyss, its stones cut with impossible precision. Venturing deeper, he discovered a central chamber where a marble cat statue, eyes inlaid with blue lapis, held court. The room was an enigma, and Charles felt the air itself hum with potential. He looked all around the room. The walls were blank, and there seemed to be nothing else in here. "Just the statue and him," he remarked, half in jest. "Just you and me, it seems," and patted the statue. To his astonishment, it began to purr, resonating throughout the chamber until his torch extinguished, plunging him into profound darkness. Yet a voice whispered, "His light will guide us in the darkness." The feline's eyes emanated a radiant glow, unveiling symbols predating any known civilization. The chamber seemed to expand, encompassing the universe and its galaxies. Amid this expanse, Charles felt an overwhelming comprehension of existence. He saw a vast expanse of stars and space in all directions, endless. Then the cat that was the statue turned white and came alive. It jumped from the pillar and ventured off towards a star. Then another identical white cat came from the same statue, and another. An endless outpouring of thousands, tens of thousands of cats poured from the statue, going in all directions. They traced lines towards different stars, like a tree branching in all directions. Charles thought, endless pathways, infinite potentials. They all faded away, and a final single white cat jumped from the statue and began to walk into the distance of space. As it did, it turned into a mane cone, then a white lion with a great white mane. It looked back at Charles and carried on into the distance, all of the stars collected in front of it, and space itself deepened into a single point. At the centre of it all was a massive sun that the lion walked into. When consciousness returned, he was outside, laying on the ground. Looking up, met by the worried gazes of Teresa and Major Sterling. The Major, smirking, remarked, "Seems our doctor knows how to make a grand entrance on his first day." Teresa, the doctor and the captain congregated within the heart of the camp, inside the captain's tent. The doctor, cradling a cup of tea in his hands, took a sip, hoping its warmth might anchor him to the tangible world. Every sensation felt magnified, every step afloat. The tea's rich, cinnamon-like flavour enveloped his taste buds. "That's spice tea," Teresa noted, catching the doctor's deep immersion in the drink. "Indeed, I'm just—" The doctor faltered, struggling to find his words. Teresa gently laid a reassuring hand on his arm. "Are you all right?" she asked, her eyes brimming with genuine concern. Almost on cue, the camp's medic entered the tent, clutching a bag she had presumably dashed off to retrieve. With a slight nod from Teresa, the medic set to work. "Just a tad disoriented," he finally managed. "What did you see, Doctor? What transpired within?" Teresa inquired, her tone gentle, yet filled with curiosity. It's all a bit muddled. It felt like some transcendental state of consciousness. At the chamber's core stood a cat statue. The moment I touched it, a resonating frequency engulfed me, leading to vivid visions. Teresa and the captain exchanged glances, faces etched with worry, yet not entirely taken aback. "Dr. Dubrois," began the captain, taking a more active role in the conversation. "The specifics of your vision are crucial. Equally important, did you discern any voices or recognize any inscriptions?" "Voices? How did you come to suspect that?" the doctor questioned, baffled. Had they encountered such phenomena before? "Doctor," the captain began gently, sensing the doctor's hesitancy. "We will not deem you delusional. Simply recount your experience, and we'll decipher its significance in due course." Gathering his thoughts, the doctor began. "In truth, Captain, my experience is hard to articulate. The surrounding walls of the chamber appeared to be covered in ancient scripts, before dissolving into an endless expanse of stars. An omnipresent hum resonated throughout, touching the very core of my being. And then, a voice echoed, 'Where there is silence, his purr is heard.'" Teresa rose from her seat, whispering urgently to the captain. Their exchange grew increasingly fervent. Growing impatient, the doctor interjected, "Would you mind enlightening me about the topic of your secret discourse?" Ceasing their conversation, Teresa locked eyes with the captain, who gave a conceding nod. She began, "Doctor, we might have been somewhat guarded with our intentions. The artifact you stumbled upon is the latest in a series of momentous findings. While we can't disclose everything at this juncture, understand that your discovery might hold the key to a mystery we've been unravelling for the past 3 decades. The doctor, now further mystified, pressed, "Discoveries pertaining to what? What exactly have you been pursuing?" Teresa paused for a moment, then replied, "Him, Doctor. The one. It seems you didn't just find him, rather he has chosen you.